And we're live.
All right, the zoning commission is now live. We have a subject matter to discuss tonight, a review as a team. First, let's take roll call.
Jeremy Jones?
Yes.
Here.
Jeremy.
Here.
Mayor Bullington?
Here. And then we have two people absent. We have Amber Fletcher
And Molly Ellis.
and Molly Ellis absent. So I would entertain a motion to excuse those or so not.
Also move.
Okay.
For both of them, if I can do both at once, I move to excuse Molly and Amber from this meeting.
Is there a second? If not,
I'll second.
motion has been properly made to excuse Molly Ellis and Amber Fletcher from the meeting tonight. All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, so moving along, Mike, I know you want to read to us what what's being proposed tonight, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. We have tonight case 2024-20, which is a proposal submitted by Mr. Delbert Eichholz. His proposal, in accordance with section 150.303, Village of Georgetown zoning ordinance, and on behalf of the owner or applicant, Mr. Delbert Eichholz, we are pleased to submit for review and consideration the attached application for a proposed zone change map amendment along the south side of State Route 125, which is East State Street, approximately 950 feet east of Race Street. There's an attached zoning plat. The owner applicant is proposing a zone change of the subject property from R1, which is a single family zoning, to Highway Business District, which is what is along State Route 125. The subject property currently consists of vacant land zoned R1 single family. The surrounding land use and zoning consists of commercial retail business to the north, zoned Highway Business District. Commercial retail to the east, zoned Highway Business District. Vacant land to the south, zoned R1 single family, and vacant land to the west, zoned Highway Business District. A zone change from R1 single family to Highway Business District is consistent with the current surrounding land use and zoning districts. The proposed development for the subject property will consist of multifamily apartments and a medical office building.
Albert,
Would you like to?
come to the mic first and give us a little more description or dialogue around what you want to do. You don't have to.
Yeah, I'll talk to him.
Microphone. You're not shy. You're not shy.
Yeah, I am. So when you open this up and you go back a little further, that was R1. And we're in desperate need in everywhere for bigger apartments, not just duplexes. So I would like for that to be something like Cambridge or some of the better buildings down at Cambridge, or like the ones that Phil Wilson had down here, So with the way the market is today, people can't buy with these rates and the prices of houses today. So there's a lot more people going to renting. Plus, there's always people growing up that's moving out of the house. So when I had those apartments down there, you never had enough. And that's what they complain about. All the people I know that's got apartments now, they can't. I still get calls asking for a place to rent. I don't have them anymore. So that's the reason for that.
Okay. All right. So if you have nothing else to say, what I'm going to do is go around and allow public comments, and then you might get some questions that way, or we might come back to you if we have questions there. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, gentlemen in the back, do you have any comments for? Okay.
I support it.
Okay. Gentleman right here, any comments that you would like to share?
Seems like a good idea to me with the current, like you said, with the current climate and everything else.
Okay. Nothing? Dave Gunther?
Yeah,
No, you go first. You're fine.
Okay.
And Delbert, maybe if you want to, yeah, or you might want to go over there, not intimidate. I don't know.
I'm okay. First of all, my name's Dave Gunther. I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak our mind. I'm completely okay with the medical facility. You know, if Mr. Eichholz wants to do that on his property, he should be able to. I have no problem with that. And I do agree that we are short on housing. There's no doubt about that. It was zoned originally for single family. And my biggest concern with that is Mr. Eichholz has a great reputation from what I've heard of taking care of his properties. But like myself, he's a much bigger investor than I am, but eventually they'll get sold off. And then what's going to happen? The other apartment buildings that we have, typically people that rent for a year or two. Every now and then you'll get people that are there longer. You know, I have some tenants in my residential homes, and those you have a better chance of keeping them long-term in homes than you do apartments. My personal opinion is this community needs single-family residences, homes, for people to move in and be part of the community. The tenants, not putting them down by any means, but they're more of a transit type of situation. Younger people, older people, they're in and out. They live there for a year or two, and then they move. Where's, the benefit for the community? It was zoned R1 originally in the back. Mr. Eichholz, you might be able to tell me, I don't know how many acres are commercial or highway business use now. How many acres are highway business use at this time, though?
Just this and this, and right in here, but actually, no, this is part of this. So the benefit is higher tax dollars, property tax, and this is back in behind some woods where you wouldn't see it from the road.
Right.
So back in here, and I don't have the rest of the map, would be like over 100 houses. So you're not going to sell over 100 lots in the real near future. So you could still give some relief to the housing business.
Right. And like I said, you've had a great reputation. As far as, actually, I did a little notes. As far as the tax revenue, yes, you'll have the property tax from, yourself, Mr. Eichholz, or, if he down the road ends up selling, which I wouldn't blame anybody. It's an investment. But you're not going to have any income tax. Chances are the people that are renting, they're not going to pay a lot in income tax. They're renting. They're not having the income to purchase a house, so they're renting instead. They're not going to have that. You're not going to have the income tax. You're not going to have, sorry, I took some notes here.
The people down at Cambridge all pay income tax.
And Cambridge, when you owned it, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, you owned it once before,
Yeah.
and you did a great job managing it. You sold it, it went downhill, and then you bought it back, which I appreciate, fixed it back up, and now it's sold again. Am I correct?
I didn't buy it back. I sold it one time.
One time, okay. See, like I said, I wasn't sure. This is just hearsay. But going back to the tax revenue,
That don't stop the renters from still paying tax, city tax.
income tax, yes, but it'll be very minor.
Yeah, but there's many,
How many units are you looking at?
well, like down there, there's 32 units on a couple of acres.
Right.
Whereas here you don't have 32 units,
Right.
it takes a lot of property to have 32 units back here. So this would produce more income tax than this back here.
I don't think I myself with, rental property, the other villages, I just pay on what I have there, and then most of the time it's nothing. They have a minimum, because as any investment, you'll have, I myself as an owner, I have a lot of write-offs. As with property, you have a lot of write-offs. So you really are able to knock down your taxable income off of that. For example, and I'm not an expert with apartment buildings by any means, but you have 15 years to amortize building the place. That's going to be taken off of any income that's produced from an apartment complex.
I think you're losing me there. In other words, when I own Cambridge, if I make a profit, which I do,
Yeah.
I did,
Yeah.
you pay income tax.
On that profit, but you're going to be able to write, when you build new, just like when I do my taxes, I go in, I put a new roof in, re-site it. Certain items, my accountant takes care of it, are able to be amortized over 15 years as far as that, and some is just for that year, depending on what you do. Deductions, so that's less that you're going to be paying in taxes, because it brings down your income.
But every business can do that.
Yeah, well, I'm not knocking you by any means. I'm just saying the benefit to the village, though, as far as a tax.
So I pay
Right.
income tax on the profit and the renters pay income tax. So you might have 10 people in this building or these two buildings,
Right.
whereas you won't have 10 taxpayers back
Right,
here.
but I do believe, and this is my opinion, that the majority of your tenants aren't going to be paying that much income tax.
But 10 can make up as much as like one or two.
Maybe so, but then again, well, here, let me finish real quick. We can go back. I think it's going to be more of a strain on the village. I personally think the village needs single-family residences, and I'm repeating myself now, that are going to be part of the community and is going to be involved, whereas tenants tend to come in and out. Like I said, I have no problem with the medical building by any means. I hate to see Georgetown become a rental village instead of your hometown community village. I mean, that's why I moved here, 12 years ago, was for that reason. I know we have issues in the other apartment complexes, and that's under different management by any means. That's nothing against Mr. Eichels. Like I said, he has a great reputation. But as everything, when the money is there, I have one of my rentals now as an example that I've already had an offer on it because he's working his way developing. If the money's right, it's probably going to go. And that's nothing wrong with that. That's business. I just feel it was initially set as R1 for a reason. And we're going from R1 being your basic your basic zoning, all the way up to the second highest, which would be industrial, is your highest. So this is highway business use, and correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's a big jump. It's not like we're going from R1 to R2 or something of that nature.
So I think I can build duplexes here as it is now.
Not with the R1, you would have to go to R2.
R2, which would be the next step up. Like I said, I just don't think this is going to be more of a down the road an issue for the village and trying
But it was
to
more for
maintain.
the medical office is why you wanted the highway business use.
Well, that's why I was asking how many acres, because if he has room on the highway business uses that's already there to build it, if he needs a couple other acres to do the medical office, that's fine, no problem. But to bring in a bunch of units and tenants, that I don't feel the tax revenue would be beneficial, other than if the whole place was developed into single-family residences. But that's just, like I said, it's nothing against Mr. Eichels by any means.
If you got
it's a
100
business.
something houses back here, you're talking years and years to sell that off. So in the meantime, where's these people gonna go?
We have, well, I don't think you would have enough people to fill that in this town. You're going to be bringing people in from Claremont County and outside of Georgetown to fill that up.
And what does that matter?
Because, well, like I said, I just wanted my opinion. I think that's going to be more of a hinder. I don't think it's going to bring in the tax money that we want.
To answer the question, we are talking about 14.2874 acres.
Okay. But yeah, no, what I was asking, what was already zoned highway business use, how much land?
Just along 125.
But yeah, how many acres is that? That's what I was asking. Is it 5 acres? Is it 8 acres? I don't know. I couldn't find that
This
information
is
out.
the only part that's in question, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this is already business.
Up along the highway, yes. That's already highway business.
This is still business here.
Where, yeah.
Over in here behind what used to be Long John Silver's and stuff, this is all business here.
Yeah, but it only extends so far off of 125, and then it changes.
According to that map that we looked at, it's the bulk of this, but anyway.
Anything
Like I
additional?
said, I just don't, I think the outlook for the village, in my opinion, should be a hometown, single-family homes. To really do it, not any more rentals. So, my opinion. That's right.
Thank you. We
Thank you.
appreciate
I
your
appreciate it.
comments. Miss Liz? Now I can move if you want.
I don't bite.
No, Delbert doesn't scare me. Maybe I scare him. You never know. My name is Liz Dunn. I'm a resident of Georgetown. I'm here in opposition of the rezoning of this 14-acre parcel. I am not in any way in opposition to the medical facility. I assume it's a Mercy doctor's office, right? Is that right? I assume. Yeah.
If it goes.
I mean, yeah, that's what I figured. Okay. And I think everybody in this community could agree that that would be an asset to us. So I'm in no way against a medical facility coming in. My understanding is that there's already enough business use acreage zoned there. I took a look at the zoning map and it looks like there's already enough there to be able to do a medical office. So I don't think that it would need a rezoning to do that. So I have to assume that the rezoning is brought up simply for the purpose of apartment complexes to go in. I'm against the multifamily high density housing for a number of reasons. And notably, and I kind of piggybacking off what Dave already said, those types of housing facilities typically do not bring in people that have an ownership mindset, meaning people that want to lay down roots here, be here long-term, invest in the community, invest in the school system, so on and so forth. I think there's certainly a place and an appropriation for multi-family housing, and we already have a lot of that here. But I think adding to that without adding tremendously to single-family homes is really taking our village in the opposite direction of where we all probably want it to go. So that's my first piece. Secondly, I am a licensed school treasurer in the state of Ohio, so I feel like I can speak candidly about what multifamily housing does to school systems. We're fortunate in this community that we have a very strong school system, and it's managed very well financially and managed very well from an academic perspective. And what happens is school districts in Ohio are only funded, well, they're funded through state foundation payments, which is money that the state allocates. But at the local level, they're only funded through property taxes. Our school district is not funded through a school district income tax. We don't have that here, nor do I really think we need it or want it. So because of that, what happens is when you get a multi-unit housing complex coming in, certainly there is property tax levied on that. And it is, let's just say we're going to talk $3 million. I'm just going to throw a figure out there. Let's say there's a building that's worth $3 million. Then of course there are all the tax assessments, and it goes down and gets assessed at about a 60% rate. So by the time that happens, and then that money comes into the county auditor's office, and the library, the board of MRDD, the village, so on and so forth, the lion's share of that money will never make up for the number of students like this. So you are quite literally putting a strain on your school system. You can make that argument in some ways on other pieces of property as well, but there is nothing quite like high density housing that does that to a school district. So I do want to, I realize there's nobody from the school district here to represent themselves, and I don't want you to think I'm representing the school district here. I am not. That's not what I'm doing, but I want you to understand what that does. So that's the other piece of it. I am glad that you brought up the I guess we'll say example of the Cambridge apartment. So I do live on what is considered South Main Street, Old 68, however you want to look at it. I live there. I grew up there. I've lived there all my life. I remember when the Cambridge apartments were built back in the early 90s, and they were beautiful. They were beautiful. They were such an asset. They were so nice. And we had a hospital here. They were high income earners that were living there. They were very well managed. And it was a local gentleman that owned them. And he did a great job. And through a series of business dealings, he no longer was able to own them. I think there was a bankruptcy involved, although I'm not sure about that. I believe that was it. They got sold to an owner that was outside of the village, which is not a surprise because there certainly are people here in the village that are wealthy enough that they can afford to own large apartment complexes, but that doesn't mean they want to. So your pool of buyers within the village is fairly slim. And so what happens is those projects are typically sold outside the village. And when they get sold outside the village, the owners don't have an invested interest. They're in it to make money. I get it. It's an investment. Who can be upset about that? They're just in it to make money, but they're not in it to protect the village. And so what happened when Cambridge sold many years ago, it went downhill in a hurry. And I think that anybody that lives on South Main Street, and even Delbert, who lives on Old 68 down past it, I think we've talked about this in the past. We could come to agreement on that. It went downhill in a hurry. That investor then sold it to another investor, and it got even worse. And finally, Delbert swooped in and saved us all at the south end of town. And I credit him tremendously with that. I want you to understand that when Delbert bought those Cambridge apartments, they got cleaned up because he didn't put up with the crap. He didn't put up with the riffraff. He didn't put up with the trash. But presumably, I'm going to live in this village longer than Delbert is. Maybe not. Maybe I get hit by a bus tomorrow. You don't. But presumably, my children and I are longer than Delbert will be here. Delbert isn't what scares me about this situation at all. I want you to understand that. It's life after Delbert that scares me. I can't imagine that at 90 years old, he's going to want to manage an apartment complex. Maybe he is, but I wouldn't blame him if he said no. And so what happens is this is going to get sold at some point. And when it gets sold, we are going to have the same issues that we've seen in every single apartment complex in the village. So it takes a lot of money to go in and buy them and clean them up and kick people out and revamp them. And I don't understand why we would be signing ourselves up to go through that. So my understanding is that there's already enough acreage there to do the medical facility. By all means, do the medical facility. If we had a way to be ensured that Delbert would be the only owner of the apartment complex, I'd say build it. But you and I both know that isn't going to happen. And so I think we have to think long-term. We have to strategize, and we have to talk about if we're trying to entice people to come and move into our village and invest in our community, who are those people? Because I don't think that those are the transient folks that you're going to see in a multi-unit high-density housing area.
Can I ask you something?
Sure, absolutely.
What problems do you have with people at Cambridge?
The cops are there every day.
I don't think so. They might have used to been, but they're not anymore.
They're there more often.
Actually, Rob lived there.
They're there more often than they were when you owned it. Let me put it that way.
But that's not next door to you. That's
It's not.
something.
It's not next door to me.
That's
It's down the
like-
road. Yeah.
That's somebody else's business. It's not something that's actually affecting you.
But it does affect me when people are breaking into my barn. It does affect me
Nobody
when.
in your barn. And it doesn't have anything to do with Cambridge. I mean,
Okay. What I'm saying is all of
Just
us
make
up
it
and down the
simple.
road have been victim to what has happened over the years there. And I've seen arrests in my neighbor's driveway from people that are on foot because they're being pursued by law enforcement, which puts a strain on our local law enforcement and so on and so forth. And so I think all of that to say that even if, you could take my opinion of what happens there, you could take that out of it completely. I could be the biggest advocate in the world for this. And you cannot deny the fact that it will put a strain on your resources, on your school system, on your police officers, on your fire department. It just does. That is what multi-unit housing does. So I don't have any further questions or statements.
Additional comments? Okay, thank you.
people that rent apartments like this are working people. They're not welfare people that are getting their rent paid for them. These people are working people, and a lot of them's older people that stay there for years. I mean, I had some awfully good renters, and they kind of keep things down because they're older. I kind of live in a different world. I've done a lot of things in my life, and like Cambridge was $27,000 a year property tax. When I had all my buildings here, I was paying $130,000 a year in property tax. A lot of people can't even begin to fathom that. And like when the fire department levy passed, that might have raised your tax $100 a year. It raised my taxes $15,000 a year. So when I speak, it's a lot more from knowledge and experience than opinion. So where's all the young people and the older people going to go to live if they can't find an apartment? There's young people every day that can't buy a house yet. There's a lot of people that's not even young can't buy a house yet. When I had those apartments down there, it was amazing that people come to you and go, I make $18 an hour. And you're like, holy crap, how do you live on that with two kids? But you would work with them and they would pay their rent. But they're not going to buy a house probably in their whole life unless they inherit a bunch of money sometime. So they need apartments. So like I say, not only would I pay, or whoever would pay a large yearly property tax, but they would pay income tax off of this, and the people that work there would pay income tax. You're probably looking at, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 times 4, let's say, 32 people. That's kind of like Cambridge. You're looking at 32 or so people paying income tax versus, a couple on a single lot. So you come out a whole lot better.
Can I say one thing about the income tax?
Yes.
Would you come up?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yes, I'm sorry. And I apologize, I didn't think of this until you just mentioned it. So when we talk about income tax is levied on all village residents. And so if you live here and you earn money, you pay 1% income tax. But there is a reciprocity agreement. So if you are working outside of our village in another village that has an income tax, and presumably people that are going to have jobs that allow them to make enough money to live in a facility like he's talking about. Like if we're talking about high-end townhouse kind of places, great. Okay, so let's say they rent for $1,800 a month or whatever. Those people are probably not working in the village. Therefore, they might be working in Claremont County, and not even Claremont County, anywhere. They're working outside the village, presumably, or a lot of them are. And when they're working outside the village, they're paying tax outside the village, and the village is offering reciprocity on that tax. So that's not income tax that's going to come back here. So I just want to.
What are your average rents going to be, do you think, on those buildings?
What?
Average rents on the building? What are you shooting for?
Well, when I was down there, I kept them down. In fact, if you can imagine this, when I bought that, I lowered people's rent because they just, they can't, especially with times like now, the saying on the street, or the talk on the street is, a person has to come up with $11,000 more this year than they did a couple of years ago. And their income don't go up like that. So I never raised the taxes. So I was somewhere between $550 and $750 down there. And I mean, they're probably going to go up here, but with 7.5% interest on a house, and starter houses like over over $299,000 for a 1,350 foot square house in that HR or DR Horton. What's the payment on that? You got to get about a 40-year loan for a starter house on a 0.17 acre lot. You might as well have apartments. I mean, might as well be a trailer park. Be that small.
So are these going to be duplexes, or is that what or are they going to be like top, bottom, single? Like what are they?
I think you'd do better like down at Cambridge, the top and bottom, because you can get more people in there, which the bigger the building, the higher property taxes and the higher the taxes that I'm going to pay or whoever's going to pay because of the income. In other words, if I'm I was bringing in about 15,000 a month down, or 18,000. But if you got little duplexes and you're only bringing in 6,000 a month, you're not going to pay near as many taxes as you are if you're bringing in 18,000. So.
Clarification, and Mike, I think you know what's coming. I'm making eye contact with you to make sure I say it right. With a nod to Dave and Liz's concerns, under highway business zoning, the maximum you can have, and this is where you correct me if I'm wrong, but the maximum you can have is 2-family home units. True or false?
True.
Right. So my point is I got a lot of people calling me about this. Very, very intelligent, knowledgeable people, really invested and interested in this. And a lot of the feedback I got was growth, good, growth, not good. And I don't, my hope is with this, the way our highway business is that if it's limited to 2-family max, I'm curious if that is like, does that impact your opinions or your thinking on this? Is that?
So you're saying that they're just duplexes, because that would be R2.
No, what he's getting
Thank you,
at
Mike.
is There is no place within the village that you can just go in and put apartment complexes. The most you can do is a duplex without a conditional use or a variance. So if this gets approved, you are not opening the door for people to just build apartment complexes.
But that's what Mr. Wright wants.
That's what his proposal is for this. That's why we're here, not for future.
Right. But that's what the
Development.
proposal is.
Right.
Oh, yeah, and like, three and right. Do you need me to sit up there?
I would prefer, since we're live streaming.
As you all know, I'm a realtor too, you know, and honestly, rental properties, I own a laundromat, it's gonna benefit me that way too. You know, so I'm here because of my grandkids. They live here, we live here. My daughter's gonna keep them in the school system. I lost my train of thought, I do apologize.
Multifamily.
Interest rates.
Oh.
We're floating, 6.5% to 7.5%, somewhere in that general area. Mr. Eichels, I know you've been around a little while, maybe a little bit longer than me. That is actually where we need to be. Last time I checked, the amount of active single-family residences, active, not under contract, taking those out, was in the 70s for all of Brown County. And you brought up Mount Orb. Those are priced a little bit high. They are selling, not as fast as they like. I'm in contact with their rep up there. They have homeowners associations, and that hurts. And that's what we even told them before they opened. I said, that's going to be your biggest challenge, is getting past that homeowners association. We have 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom little homes in what I call the cottage district off of like Lincoln and that area. They sell in the 140s. At 7%, first-time home buyers are making the money to be able to afford it. They will sell. I feel that we're going to bring in people into the village with single-family residences that are going to take an interest, majority, not all, but in the community versus transient. I don't like using that word. It makes them sound like their tenants are bad. They're not. Everyone's going to rent it sometime. But they move in, move out, move in, move out.
Who's going to build these single-family residences you want?
Well, that's, council. I don't know if they can make incentives to bring people in. And we talked about that years ago too. But apartment complexes, I think, are just going to bring in more. I hate to generalize people, and I'm not, so I'm trying to use the right words. People that aren't going to take a vested interest in the community. But as far as the rates go, personally, my professional opinion, 6 to 7% is where the rates need to be, because it keeps it's going to solid base. If when you go so low and people are used to the 2% interest rates, that was free money, just free money. But we have yet to recuperate from the crash back in 2008. So we're still working on that. And, you're talking about homes, we're building 1,400 square foot homes now in the cottage district. There's only 7 of them, and they're going to be priced, somewhere between the 250s and 260s is what we have those listed for. And we've had interest in the one we've broken ground in already. It's not under contract. It will be as soon as we start framing. Foundation gets in, they'll sell. There's no doubt in my mind they will. So, but I appreciate it.
As far as transient goes, I'll bet 1/3 of the people down at Cambridge was there long before I bought it, and they're still there long after. There's a lot of retired people, older people. There's people just can't, well, the one thing is the prices down there are still way cheaper than down the road. Over here at Phil Wilson, they raised their rent to like $1,300 a month. I mean, how many people can pay that? It's just, today, one of the things that I always kind of talked about was when I was younger, we didn't have a $70, $80 internet bill. We didn't have cell phones for everybody in the family. There's another $100 or so. We didn't have cable TV. That's another $150 to $250. What amazes me is people paying $250 for cable. So you add all them things up together versus when I was younger, that's a lot more expense, but the wages haven't went up like to meet that. So like I say, an older person that has a fixed income or a younger person or a younger family, they need a place to live just like everybody else. So you get a lot of good people in there. They're not trashy. I mean, yeah, you might get a bad one, you kick them out. But there's a lot of good people down there at Cambridge, and you can do the same here.
Bink, any comments?
Not this time.
Okay, let's go to comments from the group up here. Questions, comments, feedback? I know I had a couple questions. The medical facility, I think I have an idea, but how large is that going to be?
Depends on, they talked about 5,000 square feet.
Okay, all right. And
Let
then,
me talk about something else there.
sure.
So Dr. Todd Williams and I talk once in a while because he's in the VA clinic next door. And he told me the other day, in fact, that's why he was in the meeting, there, Mercy was going to try to work out a deal with the old hospital. But they said that they don't want to rent, they want to sell it. So I talked to Art to get the number, and I called the guy, and I said, and I called a guy, I don't know who he was, but I wondered if I had the right number. So anyway, I said, I understand you want to buy or want to sell that. Because Mercy, they would rather rent than own it. So I called this guy and I said, I understand you want to sell this. And he said, well, we got people wanting to rent it, and we got this and we got that, and we got a doctor in there, and we're pretty bullish on that building. I thought, well, that ain't what I was told. But I said, if he was going to sell it, what kind of money was you talking? And he said, oh, way more than you'll ever pay. And I said, well, I almost bought it right before you bought it for $1.2 million. And, I could work something out with Mercy or somebody or that Adams County. And he said, oh, you're not even close. We're talking 25 million. There's no way in the world that place is. So, I mean, I'm a numbers person. I do this kind of stuff all the time. I'm getting ready to buy $1,400,000 farm, another one, make me 3,300 acres. I mean, I do this stuff, dozens and dozens of these deals. And if you buy that building if you was stupid enough to buy it for 20 million, you have to get at least 10%, or you might as well just put your money in the bank. If you can get 5% for doing nothing, why would you put it into something you have to maintain? That's an older building. Who knows? When you buy a building like that, and if you bring in somebody different, the building department makes you redo almost everything, heating and air and everything. So you can spend a ton of money. I almost bought the elementary one time, and the one thing that scared me there was they kept advertising that there was a diesel tank that leaked. And I go back to the time when I bought the IGA building. People were jealous because I bought it. That's what happens in a little town like this. And they were calling saying I wasn't using an architect, and the building department wasn't involved. And so one day we were standing there talking to the building inspector, and he got his call from the state, and they said, you need to go out there and look at that. And he said, I'm looking at it right now. I'm talking to the owner. I got the plans in front of me. It's all been inspected. So what it amounts to is people was jealous. So if I bought that building with diesel leakage, somebody would have been calling EPA and everybody else, and you'd have got into a quagmire. Plus, they talked about if you're going to make offices, you're talking $300,000 for a heating and air conditioning. So if ABCAP buys it, which they did, people aren't going to call on them. They're not jealous of them. So they bought it, and nobody ever said a word about the leakage. So it kind of, this all comes from experience. So that's what I was worried about that building back then a little bit. But if you buy that for 20 million, you got to get 10%. So if you take out the property taxes, insurance, maintenance, you got to get $200,000 a month out of that place to make it worthwhile. Who do you think is going to pay that kind of rent? Nobody. So anyway, again, it all comes from experience, and people need a place to live.
All right, Karen Jones, any additional comments, questions?
No, not at this point.
Jeremy Varner?
Well, one, I think we covered one of them, but, and Delbert, if you don't, want to speak to this, or if it's not in your interest of speaking to this, I totally understand that. Another thing that Dave and Liz were riffing on is the single-family homes aspect of things. Would you care to comment on future down the road possibility plans for the, what is it, like 136 acres that is behind that on the thing we have now? It looks like it's platted out for single-family homes. Is that just random for the drawing?
Done in phases, just like I
Right.
did Virginia Estates.
Right. So in the back, is it, and again, if you don't want to say this, you don't have to, but in the back of your mind are you thinking R1 single family for at some point in the future for that rest of that property?
Yes, and let me throw something at you here.
Okay.
When I did Virginia Estates, that was about 18 years ago. And it cost me about $235 a foot. The engineer told me that, like down in the city, it's $1,100 a foot. So now think about this. 100 feet is $110,000. What do you have to get on for the lots? I sold them lots for $15,000 a piece and lost my ass really, but I put a price on them and sold them. So up here, you'd have to be talking, if I can do it for $600 a feet, every 100 feet is $60,000. And the way you do this is you go from here to there, 400 feet to a manhole, because you can't go further than 400 feet. So let's say you build 400 feet. That's $240,000. What if you only get 2 lots out of it? Well, for one thing, on the right side is Long John Silver's or Little Caesars. So you're not going to get any lots out of that. So you have to get a pretty good chunk on the other side. And when you get back in there, and so that's why I want this to be worth more money to help to pay for the development. But when you get back in here, if you're talking $60 or $60,000 for every 100 feet, you got to get a big chunk you can't sell them lots for 15,000 if you're paying 60,000 for 100 feet. So the other thing is, like D.R. Horton, when these people, when I talked to him and I talked to the engineer, he said, well, they would be interested, but I think the law is only 70 foot for a lot.
I think the frontage is 75. I'd have to look it up. But
Well,
in R1, I think it's 75.
they can't make it work for that. They have to have 55 foot lots. So I thought, how in the world do you get a house on 55 foot? But if you go down there, you remember where that Stone House restaurant was that went under? And then you pass that and there's a great big building that never got built. And then there's houses there. That's D.R. Horton. And those are pretty nice looking houses on 55 foot lots. So in my mind, I'm thinking, how do you build a house? So I drove over there to Mount Orb and they don't look bad. But if you can't do 55 foot lots, you can't build a road. You can't make enough money to pay for the development. So again, this is all from experience. Yeah, I want to go back because there's people now asking me to get some lots built. And we talked about, I got to see what the cost of the road is going to be, because back in the day, things were a lot cheaper, but everything is just skyrocketed today. I mean, can you imagine $299 for a 1,300 foot house, a new one? But people like new. So I got to figure out what the actual cost would be before I can price the lots. But I'm looking at probably $30,000 a lot, which blows my mind out here.
I didn't want to like questioning or, suggesting how you run your business. That not at all. I'm just trying to get balance. I'm trying to listen to everybody and see bigger picture kind of stuff. I mean, you know what you're doing. I'm just curious, big picture, what the possibilities are. That's all.
To clarify.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, to clarify, the minimum land area or a lot size for R1 to build a single-family residence is 12,000 square feet. The minimum width of the lot at the front of the building site shall be 75 feet. So that's a pretty good sized lot.
So 75 feet times $60 or $600 a foot.
4,500.
For 70, okay,
$600.
at $600 a
Oh,
foot
600, so it's gonna be 45,000, my bad.
times 75 feet, that's $45,000 to build the road that far. So now here's the other thing, and when I mentioned something about the village buying property and stuff, there's things you have to look into that. Because if you sit on it long enough, the interest ate up any profit you're gonna make. You know, there was interest on that money. You could have put it in the bank and made more money. So $45,000 for a 75-foot lot, that means, you know, if you build, like I said, from manhole to manhole, you're talking 240,000. What's the interest on that today? You know, in other words, if you're going to make an investment, you want to get something back out of it. You don't want to do it for 2%. So if you want the town to grow and you want somebody to do something, I mean, that's the facts.
I think for me, just sharing my opinion, I think I've got all of my questions answered, and thank you guys for coming to share your opinions tonight, certainly. One of the things as I thought through this for myself and how I was going to move forward was, you know, we've got this big Purina plant coming into Claremont County, right? I don't assume that all those people are going to live right there. I assume hopefully they're going to trickle out and come into our community and move to our area, which, yes, I understand that potentially their tax dollars are going elsewhere based on how we do our income tax. But I do also understand that, you know, they're going to come here, use our facilities, have families here, bring people here and be a part of the community. And I think as a whole, that helps us in the long run and really, you know, builds our community to get our population up, to get more things going on within the community. So for me, I just keep thinking back to this is a step in the right direction for the growth that, in my opinion, I foresee that is going to happen. You know, if we don't have places for people to live at different levels of income, right? We can't just say, it would be nice to be you know, a Madeira community or a Marymount community where, you know, you're not necessarily, you're living there because it's a nice community, that the average median income is much higher. There's, you know, walking paths and things of that nature. But the reality of we're a long ways away from that. And, you know, we've got to offer different levels of living for different types of people. That's my bottom line opinion.
Keep stopping things like this, and I hope we get everything.
Right. That's truly how I feel about it.
We
And
building apartments and diggings for us over while we're sitting here twiddling our thumbs and haven't grown in 30 years.
so that's my opinion. I'm just sharing that. And if anybody else wants to share yours, you're more than welcome to. If not, if there's no further discussion, we can always entertain a motion or what we want to do
Well,
here.
I'm just going to bring up one thing that while Delbert was talking, he did bring up keeping younger people here. Younger people do, and these generations these days don't want to own a house. They don't want to buy a house. So that gives an opportunity for them to rent. I know typically out of Georgetown, about half of the students leave and half about stay. That's about roughly what happens around here. But, you know, I understand also on the other side of the coin that our apartments that we have over on Cambridge, we have the other ones over there by Walden Electronics. Was it Airport Apartments?
Yes.
I mean, you know, we can go and we can take our time and we can look at those and we can see, yeah, they're run down. Yeah, people are slumlords, but we have more slumlords around than just apartment buildings. We can also entertain the notion that Delbert's going to sell. Well, Delbert's not going to live forever, so Delbert's eventually going to sell and probably invest in something else. But that's also looking further down into the future instead of the here and the now. And the here and the now is we need. When I ran for council, I ran for mayor. I brought up about homes, housing. We needed housing. The Purina plant will be up and going before long. People will be hired. They're already additionally building another wet food dog plant down there in Batavia as well. So there'd be another Purina Purina plant open, which is more jobs, which is more people. You can look at Mount Orb, they're building homes. You can look at Batavia, they're building homes. There's a lot of places building homes. And what we're talking about today is a medical facility in the front, 8 apartment buildings in the back, with plans of, it looks close to about 200 lots of building homes.
Over 100.
Well, I'm not, I'm just looking off the numbers or whatever, but that's still going to be more growth than we've seen here, and I've been here for over 20 years. So, yes, I know a lot of people get a little shaky on things. I think the medical facility is 100% warranted and needed in our community since Mercy pulled out and went to Sardinia. So that money is now not here. So we need that. We have Health Source. How long will they stick here? Will they stay here till the end? Or will they pull out next? I don't know. These are all things that we need to look at in our retirement village, and that's what I keep referring it to as is there's a lot of older people that live here, and we don't take that in consideration enough, to be honest and to be fair. And older people are not buying homes at this point, even though some of us want to. That too. So, we have to take that in consideration. And of course, today for us on the board to vote is literally just a recommendation to take to council, and that's going to be their authority to kind of make that decision that yes, we want it, no, we don't. But there's a lot, as I write pros and cons, and there's in my opinion, there's more pros than there are cons. And but you can't always make everybody happy either.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure. Do you want to use the
Do we
mic?
have an answer on how many units that there's going to be?
Yeah. So
Once it's laid out.
Yeah.
Once it's laid out.
not the housing, just the
The
apartments.
apartments.
Yeah.
Once it's laid out and we look at different designs and stuff and what the cost of building is. I mean, this ain't going to happen tomorrow night. I mean, over the weekend. There's so much to do before you do that. I mean, you got to go through the EPA and everybody else. But going back to housing again, what about people that grew up around here? Maybe they work at, what's that new place you just mentioned? But anyway, let's say they work in Batavia, but they'd like to stay out here close to their family. Plus, if you go down there, you're looking at $1,300, $1,400 a month for rent. It pays to stay out here.
So,
Yes, please.
okay, and I'm going to take a second to do this because remember, we actually don't make the decision tonight. So there's going to be village council members that are going to be making a decision. And if I'd like them to know why I'm thinking what I'm thinking, when I make the recommendation I'm making. So very quickly, for me, a lot of this is about balance. How do we do things well? Growth, but not crazy growth. I'm very sensitive to the school issue because of my background with schools. I feel like, and I'm going with my gut here because I don't crunch numbers. I don't have the experience crunching numbers as Delbert does. I feel like this is balanced. I don't know that I'd want to see 6 of these things happen, but one of these things happen seems to be somewhat reasonable. I think the real issue that we run into a lot of times is not so much the what and the how. If we can ensure that a Delbert-like person in the future was going to be owning these, it make us all feel a lot better about the situation. My take on that, but compliments to you, by the way. My take on that is that we've got the opportunity now. And if bad things happen in the future, we address them when they happen in the future, or we prevent them from happening by being proactive about our policies. But I don't want to be Pollyanna and put my head in the sand and saying it could never happen. But I'm saying I also don't want to assume that it's going to happen or assume that we can't do something about it. So I think it's a very, very real concern, but I also am hoping that there are things we can do about it if they occur. And so that's kind of the what versus how thing. I'll just throw out to you how many more people you could get to come in if we had broadband.
Taking a chance in this town like I have.
Right, well, yeah.
How many buildings have I bought and fixed up? How many I built buildings for the county, the juvenile and probate court because they needed a place. How many things have I done that, who else has done anything like it? Another thing about these apartments is, you got these senior living places, what's to say somebody don't come in and say, that's a perfect place for senior living? You got a problem with that? You know, those are good tenants. So,
Yeah, so my summary is I completely believe that some of the balancing comments we've heard tonight have validity for sure, but I also think they can be managed as opposed to that we have to put the brakes on something like this as opposed to we could manage it in the future. And like I say, I imagine how many people would get in there if we had broadband in the village, Delbert. We had that, no. Okay, fine, just trying to sell it. Well,
If we can manage it though, I would already do it.
again,
We've already got quite a few places that could use it.
and perhaps we should
That's
be.
what I mean.
Right, I'm with you on
I
that.
wouldn't be as hesitant. If we
I'm with
already
you.
had these well managed, I wouldn't be as hesitant.
Right.
I would not. Absolutely.
And maybe that's something that we need to be looking at
Outside
more.
investor who doesn't live here, it's a difference.
yeah, the thing about the internet is,
I was kidding about that, Delbert. I was kidding. I was just trying to tweak
when I
it.
risk my own money,
I know.
if I can't pay my bills, they come and take it. If the village or elected people risk money like taxpayer money and it don't work, they go home at night. There's no repercussions. So
I was just poking you. I did not really mean that.
I've had internet I've done internet for 25 years. And here about 2 weeks ago, my liberty.us email service went down. And I'm screaming bloody murder. I got customers that we all use it for business, most of us. And you're conducting business and you can't get an answer back. It was down for 10 days for a lot of people. And we got it back up and it went back down last week. And when you're dealing with techie people, this techie guy said, well, I think I told you I fixed it temporarily. Temporary, hell, why would you fix it temporary? No one's going to blow up again. I mean, when you're dealing with techies and you don't have control of all the factors that goes with that. But anyway, that's my internet story.
Yeah. So I'm done, Kelly. I just wanted to, so if people want to know why I'm thinking what I'm thinking, then now it's on record.
That sounds good.
Yep.
Okay. All right, then. If there are no additional comments, again, we can entertain, again, this does go to council, but we make a recommendation to council. And if you see on your agenda there, Mike has done a nice job of spelling out kind of what that looks like that we need to do or move to do in this session. Oh, sorry,
I
comment?
just want to clarify, so you're planning, Mr. Eichels, to keep the rents low, because you had mentioned that. So we're voting on recommending more low-income housing.
No, it's
No, I
not,
just want to clarify that.
it's not
because-
related to what you're talking about. If I own apartments, I keep the rents down. I feel sorry for the people today that's trying to make it. I don't know how they do it. It's sad. So I don't want to gouge them. If I make money, that's good enough. I can't do it for nothing.
I want to riff off of Dave's comment. I'm looking at Mike again. As a commission, we don't have any commentary on Delbert's business practices. We either approve or deny the thing that's in front of us. And you see what I'm saying, Dave, is that we can't, yeah.
Well, just what he had mentioned, and so I know where.
No, I get it, but that's not what we can't take that much into account. Yeah, okay.
But you're changing
I'm
from
not-
R1
Yeah.
all the way up to highway business use.
Yeah,
I'm not talking Markley Square or the airport apartments.
somewhere, yeah,
I
okay.
wouldn't have it.
So if we go to highway business, Mike, what you're saying is that in order to actually build housing units, there would still have to be a variance. Is that what you're saying? Do I understand that
So-
correctly?
This proposal, according to Joe Braun,
Uh-huh.
with these two public hearings, this can be approved through council all in one shot without having to go through the variance process
Okay.
for this proposal only. Any future, or if he requests further changes, any changes have to go through this process, zoning commission to council.
Okay.
If it was an R2 highway business, whatever, and there were to be additional multifamily, 3 or more, that would have to go through the variance process or the appeals process.
Okay. So the 14 acres, the 14 and some change acres that he's requesting be rezoned,
Correct.
and we don't, how much road frontage does he already have that's highway business though? Like, I know that there's a portion of what he owns that's already highway business.
Everything along 125 is highway
So
business.
enough to do the medical facility is already there. It doesn't need to be rezoned to put a medical.
I don't know
facility.
I don't know the footage, how far it extends south of there.
Okay, could we find that out? Like, I feel like that's,
If we've got an accurate map,
well, I don't know why we're talking about zoning if there's not an accurate map on file somewhere. I mean, we might as well scrap the whole thing if we don't have an official map.
well, and the only map that we have is the one that was the original, and there's so many mistakes, and with annexations and everything, it's not been kept up to date.
Then why are we talking about rezoning any parcel anywhere if we don't even have a map that officially tells us what is zoned what?
We have to go with what we have, and we have an application. That's why we're here.
Do we want this village to grow or do we want it to just stay stagnant?
I'm ready to move forward. I move to recommend approval of the requested zoning change.
Oh, so we have to second that, right? Like with the council? Like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna second that.
Okay. The motion has been made. Any discussion from the board members?
I threw my comments out earlier.
All right, then let's do a roll call vote, Tara.
Jeremy Garner,
I vote yes.
Jeremy Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Bullington.
Yes. Motion passes. Again, I appreciate your comments,
Yeah.
but I do definitely want to see us move forward and provide some additional housing options to the community. I hope you guys can understand that. All right, I think that's everything on our agenda.
The next hearing, this will go before the village council on
Thank you.
June 20th, which will be a special council meeting. Again, that will be a public hearing as well. And then council will have the final decision on it
And that will be in these chambers.
Yes.
at 6 o'clock.
At 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock,
6 o'clock.
since it's a special meeting, yes.
Take off.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Oh, okay, please bring, yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn, sorry.
All right, and is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, meeting is adjourned.
We're still live.
Hey, thanks for your time. I appreciate that.
Thank you guys.
Your teacher is very funny from the back, I can only see from the